For every artist who was told to wait, to be quiet, to sign without reading, this story is yours. The first time I watched someone else sing my melody, I was sitting on the cracked vinyl couch outside Studio C, fingers still stained with the graphite smudge of lyric edits. The hallway lights buzzed softly overhead, flickering in a way the maintenance team always promised to fix. My laptop sat open on my lap, the final demo still queued up in the waveform display. 37 stems layered meticulously. Every harmony carved like bone, every chord change carefully bent to fit the emotion I'd mapped in my head. On screen, the new rookie group from Nova Sound was performing on a music show. Polished choreography, glittering stage lights. The chorus dropped with a flawless rise in pitch, 3 seconds earlier than the original version I wrote. The melody hit. My melody. The one I recorded on a sleepless Wednesday after 22 takes and 4 silent rewrites. I didn't move. Not even when the harmonies I had handcrafted burst through the speakers like confetti. You inspired it. That's what director Yoon had said earlier that week. His voice, calm, amused, calculated, had hovered over my shoulder in Studio B right before he sent me back into editing the bridge on a different track. Melodies circulate, he had added, offering a tired smile like he was explaining rainfall. Anyway, it's something, right? You should be proud. Pride. That's what he thought I wanted. Or maybe that's what he offered because he assumed it was enough. I closed the laptop lid softly, fingers resting a moment on its worn edge. The screen darkened, and in its reflection, I saw the studio keycard still clipped to my lanyard. The word assistant was half worn off the badge in faint silver ink. No one ever asked for it back. Inside Studio C, the air was cold with the scent of dust, laminate, and slightly burnt electricity. The recording booth was dark now, its red light long faded. I slid my bag under the desk and ran my palm over the mixing console, familiar terrain under foreign hands. The song that aired wasn't identical to my version. They'd stripped the lyrics, dulled the emotion, sharpened the tempo to sound more palatable. Polished theft. Sanitized sabotage. They don't steal your name outright. They erase it until you start wondering if it was ever there. I opened my project file again. Scroll play, pause, scroll back, highlight the chorus section, timestamp 1:17 and 2 seconds. Created 2 months ago, accessed 6 times by 3 other devices. I copied the stem into a new folder labeled Retain 1, then again, a duplicate folder with the same contents stored on a separate external drive tucked inside a case that never left my side anymore. Outside the booth, Director Yun's voice echoed from a conversation in the hallway. Calm, always calm, the sound of someone who believed everything belonged to him eventually. He spoke in half praise, half instructions. She's got a great ear for tension release, smooth transitions, needs help on branding though. Laughter, footsteps, the door never opened, they weren't here for me. The break room was empty when I entered, its vending machine humming like a stubborn chorus line stuck on repeat. I poured lukewarm coffee from a chipped thermos and found my name faintly scrawled on a paper cup. CAO. Almost rubbed off. A ghost signature of last week's rehearsal. Someone else's lipstick mark stained the rim. I threw it away. Not out of spite, out of clarity. That name didn't mean anything here. Back in the hallway, I paused near the glass panel that overlooked Studio D. A new trainee was inside, rehearsing a bridge I'd written 6 drafts ago. The original lyrics had been gutted, replaced with crowd-friendly rhymes. Still, the melodic skeleton remained. He didn't sing it badly. In fact, he sang it well. But watching him move through my work with someone else's fingerprints on it felt like witnessing a play you authored being performed by strangers who'd never read the second act. Later, I sat at the bus stop with my earbuds in, the city smog curling into the air like something unbothered and cruel. The streetlights reflected in the puddles as if trying to convince them they were stars. I listened to the official release again. The production was seamless. The chorus, catchy, a perfect commercial piece. But I remember what it sounded like before they drained it of truth. It had been written for someone alone, someone trying to say everything in one breath before the door closed. There had been hesitation in that melody, fragile, breaking upward like a question without punctuation. That was gone now. They'd made it bright, clean, safe. A notification lit my phone. Congrats to our boys for hitting 3 on the charts. Thank you to the songwriting team at Nova Sound. There was no tag, no name, just team. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel betrayed. Betrayal implies trust. I had offered none. What I felt was colder than anger, quieter than grief. It was the slow compression of reality folding in on itself. Calm, inevitable. At home, I opened the laptop again. I renamed the folder from Retain 1 to Proof Siha 01A and marked it with a red tag. Then I opened a document and began listing dates, song codes, demo file paths. No prose, no emotion. If you can't be seen, then at least be undeniable. The cursor blinked on the screen like a pulse. Somewhere outside, a siren passed. The noise faded. My apartment filled with silence so full it began to resemble sound. I looked toward the open window, the curtain shifting slightly as the wind moved through it. The city was still alive. So was I. And somewhere, beneath the noise and the filters and the performance, my melody still existed. Tomorrow, I would return the keycard to Studio C, swipe in, log another demo, watch him smile and pretend I was getting closer. He didn't know I'd stopped trying to earn a name. I was building something else now, something quieter, sharper, measured. The kind of silence that waits for the perfect chorus. The hallway outside Studio C never changed, though. I had slightly... That night, after watching my chorus rise to the top of a chart I wasn't mentioned on, I walked slower than usual, dragging my fingertips along the wall's chipped paneling like I was trying to feel for seams in the world. Somewhere above the flickering ceiling light, the air vent buzzed low and constant. The hum burrowed into my mind like a memory that wouldn't sharpen. The vending machine blinked near the corner. Row E3, where someone always left the last can of barley tea untouched. I stood in front of it longer than necessary, coins gripped in my palm like they were proof of presence. I didn't want the drink. I wanted the sound it made. The clink, the thud, the brief metallic echo that reminded me I was still here. Still real. I turned, can unopened in hand, and saw someone already seated on the worn leather bench across the hall. Hood up, shoulders forward. A posture that didn't invite conversation, but didn't completely guard against it either. Her face came into focus only when I stepped into the hallway's dimmest stretch. Yena. Her name floated into memory not as a face from meetings, but from liner notes. Ones that had quietly disappeared a year ago. A ghost who once trended on producer forums for her melodic intelligence, and then... nothing. She didn't look up when I approached. I didn't think anyone used this floor at night anymore, I said, voice low. She tilted her head toward me slightly, eyes hidden beneath a shadow cast by the hood's edge. Her voice came out rough, not from disuse but from too many conversations that had ended before they began. I don't come here to work, not anymore. The silence between us stretched thin like an overpulled guitar string. I sat down a few feet away, still clutching the can like it meant something. She didn't comment on it. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers intertwined, thumb tapping slowly against a knuckle. Not anxious, measured, like she was counting something invisible. I used to think, she said eventually, if I wrote well enough, someone would say my name. Maybe not on stage, but somewhere. On a document. A credit roll. She smiled faintly, lips curling without warmth. I got better, cleaner, faster. Then they stopped using my name at all. I looked down at the floor where a folded piece of paper sat by her feet. A song draft. Handwritten, faint pencil lines curling into treble staves and unsung verses. The kind of draft you wrote when you weren't trying to impress. The kind you wrote to remember who you were. You're still here, I offered. They haven't erased you completely. Her eyes met mine then, and I saw it. The exhaustion that comes after rage has cooled, after grief has run dry. It wasn't bitterness. It was clarity without warmth. They don't erase you, they archive you, like a sample they might use again. Her gaze dropped back to the floor. May wants songs, not songwriters. The vending machine clicked again. Someone restocking cans on a timer. The sound was louder than her voice, louder than mine. We sat in that fluorescent limbo, side by side, but not aligned, like two notes written on different keys of the same sheet. I wanted to ask her why she stayed, why she came here at all, if this hallway still felt like something unfinished, or if she needed the repetition of presence to keep from disappearing completely. But I didn't ask. Some people carry answers that hurt more when spoken aloud. She stood slowly, leaving the song draft behind. A small tear curved through the corner of the paper where it had been folded too tightly for too long. As she passed, she paused, not to say goodbye, not to explain, but to leave a line behind, like a watermark. The silence doesn't mean they won, it means they trained you not to interrupt. Then she disappeared down the hallway, her reflection fading from the studio glass as if it never belonged there to begin with. I didn't move for a long time. The song draft lay untouched. I reached down, hesitating for a breath. My fingers hovered just above the page. Do I want to know how it ends? Instead, I picked it up, not to read it, but to file it away. The paper trembled slightly in my grip, slight from use, weightless from erasure. Back at my desk, I didn't reopen the chorus project. Instead, I pulled out both drives, Drive A and Backup B, each labeled, each dated, each identical. I created a new folder, Echo Files, verified, and I backed up everything, twice. Raw stems, demos, scratch vocals, melody drafts, arrangement, notes. Then I copied the notes from Yena's draft and labeled it with her name in bold, as if willing it back into existence. I stored it alongside my own files, like memory refusing to die quietly. The air was still, no one called my name, no one needed my input, and yet I worked. Because from that night forward, I understood something I hadn't before. Visibility isn't offered, it's stolen. And if they won't give it to you, then you start building your own record, layer by layer, bite by bite. As the studio lights dimmed automatically for Off Myers, I stood in the doorway one last time and looked back at the chair where Yena had sat. Empty now, the overhead bulb above it flickered once and steadied. The silence pressed down, not as a burden, but as a message. They think you'll stop when no one claps. They think applause is your finish line. But applause fades. Files don't. The lyric sheet was still on my desk. Folded once, then again, the crease soft from being opened too many times, but never signed. I'd written that chorus months ago, late one evening in Studio C, after the air conditioning cut out and the city outside vibrated with the sound of distant sirens. It came to me like memory, soft, precise, wounded. I remember humming it with my forehead resting against the booth glass, waiting for a click track that never started. The melody had a weight then, something bruised and breathless in the final modulation, like an apology you don't want to say out loud. Now it was playing on every screen in the building. The Project 9 teaser had gone live 3 minutes ago. I hadn't clicked it yet. My hands hovered over the trackpad, frozen in the space between dread and expectation. It wasn't about doubt, I already knew. I'd heard whispers in the hallway, producers quoting a phrase I hadn't published, a chord shift that mirrored mine exactly. When the video started, I didn't flinch. 4 boys moved across the screen in slow motion, styled and silhouetted, backed by lights too white to be real. The verse was forgettable, auto-tuned, familiar in the way overproduced things tend to blur together. Then the chorus came, and there it was. My melody, my pacing, my breath built into their crescendo. They'd changed the lyrics, flattened them into phrases meant for easy chants and dance breaks. The emotional curvature I'd written, gone, but the skeleton remained. The line that dropped 3 semitones before soaring again on the 7th beat, that was mine. My heart knew it before my mind caught up. I watched the whole teaser in silence, once, then again. On the 3rd playback, I clicked download. The progress bar crawled across the screen like a wound stitching itself shut in reverse. I remember how long it took me to get that bridge right. 3 nights, no sleep. I revised the entire modulation because I thought they'd care about how it felt, not how it sounded in a stadium. The file saved to my desktop. I didn't label it. I didn't need to. It would be archived beside every other stolen thing, indexed, duplicated, sealed. When I arrived at the studio later that afternoon, the energy was sharp and humming. Technicians and assistants moved with too much speed, too many smiles. Project 9's name echoed from open doors. Their track hadn't even released in full yet, and the buzz was already louder than any credit I'd received in 2 years. Director Yoon was in Studio B, leaning back in the producer's chair like he owned the air. A coffee cup balanced in one hand, phone in the other, while 3 juniors scrambled to adjust the EQ settings on the monitor mix. He looked up when I entered and smiled like he'd been expecting me. "Seo ha," he said smoothly, waving off the others with a glance. "Heard the teaser?" I didn't answer. I stepped into the room, each pace measured, the soft click of my boots quieter than the background synth bleeding through the speakers. "I'd like to discuss publishing," I said. His smile didn't falter, but his head tilted slightly, as if I'd mispronounced something basic. I met his gaze evenly. "The chorus. The one that aired this morning. I wrote it." A beat passed, then 2. He sighed, slow and performative, the way people do when they think disappointment is a teaching tool. "Seo ha," he said gently, as if handling a child. "You're not ready to handle publishing." His tone didn't sharpen. It stayed calm. The insult was in the ease of it. "You're an artist," he continued. "Let me take care of the rest." It wasn't condescension, it was control, varnished in mentorship. And that was what broke. Not my pride, I'd buried that long ago. Not my hope, I hadn't relied on that in months. It was patience, the quiet, desperate belief that if I worked long enough, clean enough, invisibly enough, someone would see me. He wasn't grooming talent, he was building a catalog of ghosts. I left Studio B with my heartbeat slow and my hands still. Not clenched, not trembling, just placed. In the hallway, the vending machine hummed again, louder this time. Louder than the praise echoing from behind the glass walls of Studio A. I passed it without stopping. Back at my desk, I unfolded the lyric sheet. The original, pencil-marked, annotated in the margins with my notes on vocal phrasing. Drop vibrato here, lean into silence, let the voice crack, don't fix it. None of that survived in the final version. I placed the sheet beside my laptop, opened the downloaded teaser file, and matched it line by line with my demo. Same arc, same bones, same rhythm. A perfect replica wearing someone else's skin. That night, I created a new directory in my archive, Proof Theft 3X. I didn't name it after Project 9, I named it after myself, as if to remind the system this belongs to me. Then I started uploading everything. To cloud drives, cold storage, a legal timestamp service I'd never used until now. Every note, every draft, every trace of that melody, before it was stripped and sold. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Those were luxury reactions for people with time. And clean endings. I archived, because if they were going to turn me into a ghost, then I'd haunt every bite of their catalog until they choked on silence. The last thing I saw before closing my laptop was the lyric sheet, creased but upright, leaning against the screen like a contract that had waited too long to be signed. And suddenly, I didn't want to be heard anymore. I wanted to be undeniable. By the time the 4th track I'd written echoed back to me with someone else's name attached, I no longer felt anger. What remained was architecture. Every betrayal had become a blueprint, layered, time-stamped, backed up across redundancies like a system engineered for collapse. Not mine, theirs. It was nearly 2 a.m. when the email arrived. No subject line, no introduction, just a file attachment labeled comparison_audio_veracity MP3 and a message below it. "I don't like thieves. Let me help you get your name back." The sender, Hyunju. I knew the name. Not through music, but through metadata. a former copyright litigator who once took on the digital publishing arm of Daesung Media and walked away with a closed-door settlement and half their licensing division. He wasn't a hero, he wasn't interested in spotlight or sentiment, he was someone who understood that proof without a pipeline meant silence. I opened the audio file on instinct. Side A, my original demo. The chorus, with its breath-staggered phrasing and raw vibrato, I'd left intentionally uncorrected. Side B, the final mix from Project 9. The waveforms aligned like overlays, a forensic match. He'd run a fingerprint analysis, the sonic equivalent of blood spatter on a canvas. I replied with 2 words, where? We met the next night in the unlikeliest of places, a defunct printing house tucked behind an old train yard. Cold brick walls, high ceiling lined with cables, no company branding, just an address that hadn't been registered as a business in over a decade. I arrived in a hoodie, hair tied back, headphones around my neck like armor I hadn't taken off in hours. He was already inside. No theatrics, no handshake, just a laptop open on a fold-out table and a projector screen blinking with a simple title, Dead Signal Protocol. He didn't ask how I found the place, he knew I would come. I tracked 3 of your stems, he said. All uncredited, all modified, metadata scrubbed, but the export chain left shadows. Amateur work. He didn't look at me while he spoke. He gestured to the screen, files cascading in organized folders. My name appeared over and over in comments, drafts, unused takes, never in the final cut. I'm not here to rescue you, he added plainly. I'm offering a system, one that makes theft cost more than it's worth. I studied him. Early 30s, no rings, no visible watch, no trace of industry styling. His shirt was plain, sleeves rolled. His expression didn't flex for sympathy or strategy. He wasn't trying to persuade me. He was giving me a door. What's the system? I asked. He leaned back slightly. Dead Signal Records. Not a vanity label, not a dream factory, a vault, a firewall. Every song registered with blockchain IDs, immutable metadata, smart contracts that execute on distribution, not promise. He clicked once. A name appeared. A demo artist. Another click. Timeline of submission, theft, release, and viral use by a major agency. They buried her too, he said. The contract they gave her had 3 non-exclusive derivative clauses stacked under separate headings. And she signed? I asked. She didn't read. Sat down without asking permission. What do you want from me? His eyes didn't waver. Your songs, your brain, your silence, until it matters. There was something brutal about the honesty. No soft promises, no dreams about stage lights. Only war whispered behind closed circuits. Pulled out my drive, placed it on the table. These are the first 27, I have more. He didn't touch it. Instead, he slid over a fresh SSD with Dead Signal 1 etched in metallic ink. This one remembers everything, he said. Use it like evidence. Weeks passed in deliberate anonymity. We registered Dead Signal not as a music label, but as a data distribution company. That was the trick. The industry looked for artists. It didn't scan for archivists. Each song uploaded came with 3 tags: creator, date, proof chain. No genre filters, no profile pages, just truth disguised as code. The space we worked from never changed. Same warehouse, same table, a single chalkboard wall now filled with names, handwritten in white ink, under a title that read, Unclaimed. These were artists, dancers, engineers, chorus singers, lyricists, all ghosted, all silenced. Hyun found them. I brought them in. Some cried, some refused to speak. Others didn't even know they'd been stolen from until we showed them their work buried inside someone else's bed. For every story, we added a song. For every song, we built a timestamp. And for every timestamp, we added 1 word in the corner of the board. Rewritten. I didn't return to Nova Sound for 2 months. Not in person. Not in voice. I let the silence stretch. Let them wonder where I'd gone, whether I'd broken, whether I'd accepted. They thought silence was surrender. It was a setup. The last entry I uploaded that night was the Project 9 chorus. I labeled it Demo ID 9x underscore SEO underscore HA1 underscore I typed. Theft begins in applause. Proof begins in silence. And clicked publish. As the screen confirmed registry, I reached up and wrote one more name on the chalkboard wall. My own. Not erased, not shadowed, not whispered. Claimed. The chalk on the board hadn't dried yet when the first breach hit. I was still at the warehouse. Dead Signal's lightless core. When Yanju turned his laptop toward me with a quiet exhale through his nose. Not excitement. Not alarm. The kind of breath people release when they see a clock ticking exactly as predicted. Nova Sound's internal server had been compromised. 3 demo vaults opened. 4 staff inboxes leaked. 1 shared folder, mistakenly left with a public view link, surfaced on a fan forum within 90 seconds. The files weren't mine. Not directly. They belonged to a trainee named Gaon Berg. Barely 17, with no official debut, no protection clause, and no presence on the agency site except for one out-of-focus dance camp group photo. But his message was clear. Said they used my choreography. Changed 2 beats, claimed it was inspired. I didn't get a reply, I got a warning. The post went viral in 4 hours. Attached were videos. A side-by-side comparison, the body doesn't lie. His movements, sharp, grounded, emotionally precise, mirrored down to the ankle rotations and breath breaks. He danced in silence, in a room with peeling paint and a mirror half-cracked across the center. On the other side, the same routine replayed in high definition under floodlights, with another boy in a $1,000 jacket and staged lighting. They didn't even adjust the tempo. I didn't message Guyon. I didn't repost the clip. I didn't speak. I opened a notepad file and began writing timestamps from both videos. Then I added them to a new section in the Dead Signal vault, Choreo Claims, Level 1, Cross-Referentials. He would come to us eventually, they always did. By the end of the week, 2 more claims surfaced, this time from a sound engineer who posted screenshots of payment delays, 4 months behind, and studio logs from Project 9 sessions. Her name never appeared in the final mastering credits. The hashtag started slow. Ghost hands. Credit silence. Nova unheard. It felt like breathing underwater had suddenly shifted. Like the oxygen wasn't gone, but the illusion of breathability had ruptured. And still, I said nothing. When I returned to the Nova Sound Tower, on paper, through a proxy identity, I walked through its front lobby in silence. The marble floor gleamed as always. The security guard nodded like nothing had cracked. But the atmosphere was different. Receptionists whispered behind their screens. An intern passed by with red eyes, pressing a tablet too tightly against her chest. In the elevator, I caught the headline flashing from someone's phone. Former staff speak out. Inside Nova Sound's silent room culture. The article had no formal attribution. Anonymous interviews, masked voices, pixelated faces. But I recognized every story. One line stood out. I didn't quit because I was broken. I left because I was erased before I could even be shaped. Upstairs, Studio A had been sealed for equipment upgrades. I knew what that meant. Internal audit. Damage control. I walked past it without a glance, heading to the back office where most of the pre-release administration was handled. A woman I didn't recognize handed me a folder. Her eyes didn't meet mine. The paperwork was clean. Too clean. Project 9's final track was listed as original composition, in-house arrangement. No trace of my name, no trace of the chorus lineage. I nodded once and signed the release. Soha. As a proxy shareholder registered through a silent affiliate under Dead Signal's licensing shell. With that stroke of a pen, the track was cleared for launch. I didn't stop it. I gave it permission to burn. That evening, I returned to the warehouse. Jan was marking something on the chalkboard wall. A line from a leaked NDA had been torn into fragments and taped together, piece by jagged piece, forming a messy collage of redacted phrases. Perpetual clause, training use only, waiver of moral rights, derivative ownership at company discretion. Below it, someone had added in chalk, ownership isn't earned, it's rewritten. I stepped into the recording booth, no lights, no sound. I turned the mic off and hit record. The booth filled with static. Footsteps, breathing, distant traffic, ambient memory, unclean sound, the kind of thing no one notices until it haunts a playback. I stood in the silence, headset wrapped around my ears, listening to nothing in particular. This is what the system sounds like when it forgets to hide. Later, I watched the countdown page for Project 9's release go live. Big fonts. Confetti graphics coming in 7 days. Fans flooded the site, dropping emoji chains and remix guesses. I scrolled through quietly until I found the pre-release shareholder acknowledgements page. My proxy name sat there. Plain, invisible to anyone not looking. Marked as Silent Partner, Publishing Division. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't share it. Proof doesn't require applause. It waits until the moment they claim too loudly, then it speaks. As I closed the tab, I heard a message alert buzz on my burner phone. A simple line of text from Hyun. Your chorus, your terms. Ready? I stared at the words for a moment, then turned back to the studio mic, still recording empty air. Outside, the city blazed with digital noise. Inside, Dead Signal held its breath. The countdown had started. Let them dance. The morning of the release, the city felt too loud. Rain clung to the glass windows in fine streaks. Light, steady, rhythmically timed like a metronome counting down a performance no one knew had already begun. I sat in the corner booth of a nameless cafe 2 districts away from the Novasound Tower. Black tea untouched, earphones in, screen open to a fan countdown stream running on autopilot. 0 o'clock and 3 seconds. 0 o'clock and 2 seconds. 0 o'clock and 1 second. It dropped. The chat erupted in colors. Streaming emojis, caps locked joy, usernames flashing in rhythm. The track opened exactly how they'd wanted it to. Polished. Cinematic. First verse pristine. Layered vocals suspended like glass threads over a pulsing backbeat. Project 9's voices. Clean, identical, manufactured to perfection. And then the chorus hit. Except it didn't. The music fractured. Sharp static. Not random, not accidental. It tore through the arrangement with intent, scraping the melody down to wireframe. Not silence, something worse. Noise. Raw, hostile, embedded with distortion that felt personal. Like a scream pressed through a machine and spit back with a signature you couldn't erase. The chat slowed, then surged. What was that? Glitch? No way they dropped a bug like that on debut. I hit pause and opened the file spectrogram on my laptop. Magnified the waveform. There was etched in the static's frequency band. SH. Faint, almost imperceptible unless you knew what to look for. My initials, imprinted at 4.7 mil. Not to claim credit, to confirm presence, to make the lie visible. 3 hours later, my original demo surfaced on a fan forum. Not by me. Someone else found it. An anonymous user uploading the untouched cut from a forgotten vocal reel. The progression matched. Every note. Every phrasing shift. My voice unpolished and still half-breath. The comparison video followed within the hour. Side by side, labeled Static versus Source. Who really wrote Project 9's chorus? It climbed to 200,000 views in 5 hours. Then 600,000 by nightfall. Trending. 3 under. They lied to us. I watched from the studio floor at Dead Signal. Yeon stood across the room, arms crossed, face unreadable. On the wall behind him, the chalkboard had been wiped clean. In its place, One line written in red ink. Silence is only powerful when you control it. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The noise had begun, and it was ours. By the end of the day, Nova Sound issued a statement, vague, defensive. We are aware of the technical issues experienced during the chorus section of Project 9's latest single and are working with our internal teams to investigate. They avoided my name. They couldn't avoid the footage. Fans dissected every frame of the static, slowed it, boosted it, filtered it. The spectrogram screenshots spread like fire through K-pop forums, Discord servers, expose channels. They tried to spin it as intentional artistry, a metaphorical silence. But the receipts had already metastasized. One post read, "You can't call it a glitch when someone else already sang it better." Director Yoon's interview aired that night. He looked pale, thinner, like he hadn't slept in 3 days. His voice was the same, smooth, practiced, but the edges were crumbling. "The creative process is often collaborative," he began, smiling too tightly. "We draw inspiration from many internal sources, sometimes lines blur." "And was the chorus stolen?" the host interrupted. Yoon blinked. Once. Twice. I wouldn't call it that." The host played the demo. Live. In the studio. Yoon's hand curled slightly on the armrest. The silence afterward was more damning than any accusation. By morning, the investors had pulled out. Not all at once. One by one. Quiet exits. Sponsorship logos removed from upcoming media. Merch sites shutting down. Fan bases canceling orders. Nova Sound's stock ticked downward. Not plummeting, but eroding like sand under pressure. The real fracture came when their own producers began stepping away. An internal composer released a blog post. "I was told to change the stems. I regret it." Another leaked a list of unreleased tracks, all matching time steps with files in the Dead Signal archive. I didn't respond to any of it. I stayed behind the glass, watching. They trained me to be invisible. I simply gave them what they wanted. That night, I returned to the same cafe, same table, same seat. Rain again. It hadn't stopped. The streets outside were glossed with reflection, headlights cutting through puddles like distorted spotlights. I opened my laptop and queued up the final stream recording, played it through. Verse, perfect, static, sharp. And then someone in the comments caught it, at the 30-second mark, layered beneath the noise, a voice, barely audible, whispering the original lyrics, buried deep in the chaos. It hadn't been an accident. Dead Signal didn't sabotage. We restored what had been erased, buried it in the lie, and let the public excavate the truth on their own. I closed the lid. But behind me, a couple whispered over shared earbuds. I heard the name Project 9 mentioned, heard the tone of confusion, then awe. I stood, scarf in hand, eyes lingering on the raindrops sliding slowly down the glass. Yun hadn't been defeated. He'd been undone. Not through violence, through data, through silence, through engineered consequence. And the chorus? It didn't belong to anyone, now. It was mine, and I gave it to the world with static as its frame. They say when sound is erased from a room, what remains isn't silence, it's memory. In the days after the chorus fractured Nova Sound's glass shell, I stopped watching, I stopped listening. There was nothing left I needed to see. The headlines tried to soften the blow. Yun clarifies static controversy, miscommunication, not malice. His apology was a performance, a desperate monologue staged on live stream under filtered lighting and PR-fed phrases. "We value every contributor. The song went through many hands. This was never our intention." He said "our" like it meant protection, like it could hide him. I didn't respond. Instead, I watched the red light on my recorder blink in perfect rhythm, steady and silent on the warehouse console. It blinked for every name that never made it to a contract, every draft that vanished under someone else's branding. It blinked for me. Yun's apology was drowned within 48 hours. Dead Signal's archive opened its next vault, a collection of 16 demo tracks with full timestamps, stem comparisons, and spectral overlays. Every file carried a hidden credit, restored through blockchain-locked metadata. Every song carried proof. He couldn't outtalk math. Producers defected quietly, one after another. Some emailed me directly, short messages, nothing flowery. I knew, I'm sorry. I used your bridge, I want to make it right. They said we'd get in trouble if we said your name. I didn't answer those messages either. This was never about apologies. It was about reclamation. The first time I saw my name printed legally, I didn't expect the feeling it brought. It was on a vinyl test pressing, matte black, no center label, just a thin silver ring stamped with track 3 composition Shioha Shin. I ran my finger over the groove like it was a scar I had finally decided not to hide. No cameras, no unveiling. It arrived in a cardboard sleeve on the corner of Hyun's desk under a stack of licensing files. He handed it to me like it was paper. It weighed more than anything I'd ever held. Not because it was public, it's because it was permanent. The city didn't stop moving. Nova Sound didn't collapse overnight. They issued updates, pivoted, announced a new artist development program with transparent pipeline policies. It didn't matter. The talent stopped showing up. They came to Dead Signal instead, quietly, discreetly, with notebooks full of stolen lines and voices cracked from overwork. They didn't ask for fame, they asked for proof that what they'd made wouldn't be lost again. We gave them systems, folders, tags, memory finally given form. A month passed before I stood on a stage again. Not a real stage, a loading dock behind an abandoned theater that Dead Signal had converted into a demo space. No press, no lights, no sponsors. The audience was 12 people. I knew 9 of them. The rest had found us through word of mouth, their hands full of fragments they hadn't known how to carry alone. The mic was simple, a single floor light. The crowd silent. Behind me, on a projection screen stitched together from blackout curtains and salvaged glass, one phrase glowed. If they won't give you your voice, take back the silence too. I stepped forward, heartbeat low, shoulders loose. Not performing, reclaiming. I sang the original chorus. Not the stripped version, not the static buried file, the first one. Rough, breathy, imperfect, the one I'd written when the pain was still fresh enough to sting and not yet sharp enough to use as a weapon. My voice didn't rise, it settled. Low, honest, whole. There was no applause, only stillness. And then the soft click of the recorder. The red light blinked. Wrong this time. Forward. When I stepped down, no one asked for an encore. A girl in the second row passed me a lyric sheet. Half of it was erased from water damage. The rest was penciled so lightly it barely left a mark. I took it. Not as approval, as recognition. She didn't speak, I didn't have to. Outside, the city had gone dark in patches, rolling brownouts due to grid strain. No one panicked. People adjusted, held their phones up for light, learned to move in shadows with more care than they did in neon. I walked home under that half-dark sky. My name was safe now. I've not celebrated, touched, but not trending. Known. And somewhere, buried in the feeds, fan compilations were still surfacing. Titles like, "She was there the whole time." "I lied, she sang." This is what a voice print sounds like. None of them tagged me. They didn't need to. I had finally become what they tried so hard to erase. Unmistakable. I walked past the Nova Sound building for the first time in 6 months. The lobby windows were blacked out now. Film stretched across the glass like gauze pulled too tightly over a wound. The marquee letters had been peeled clean. Only the faint ghost of the logo remained, like pressure bruises left behind by fingers that had held too hard for too long. I didn't stop. My stride didn't falter. My gaze never lifted above the street lamps reflecting off the wet sidewalk. Above me, the elevator display inside the tower flickered through the glass. separate. Uh, uh, endless cycles. No direction. The perfect metaphor. Dead Signal didn't throw a launch party. It didn't need to. The server went live in silence. No press kits, no banners, just a new line of code entering a system too tired to notice until it was already rewriting the rules. The interface was stripped to function. Bare bones layout, monochrome theme, no artist bios, no follower counts, only 3 sections on each page. 1. Contributor name. 2. Proof chain. 3. Time of creation. And beneath that, 1 recurring phrase. Verified voice print, source registered. Each entry was a bullet in a chamber once held by the powerful, each log a reckoning without sound. My name appeared now and then in interviews, never from me. Other artists mentioned it when discussing Dead Signal's birth. Journalists tried to trace it back, but the trail stopped at encrypted contracts and anonymized transfers. I never signed anything with my real name again. I didn't need to. I existed now in every verified waveform. At home, I opened my laptop one final time. The folder had sat in the same place for 3 years. /demo/chorus_orig/SEOHA_work1A. I hovered the cursor over it, watching the list of files unfold. Revisions, scratch takes, stem variations, dozens of versions of the song they stole, the melody I used to hum under my breath when no one was listening. I didn't play them. I didn't need to hear them again. I dragged the folder to the trash. Not out of anger, out of evolution. They were no longer mine to protect. The world already knew. The truth had outgrown its original container. I emptied the bin. Dead Signal had outlived every forecast Kian and I had quietly scribbled on napkins and whiteboards. The people who came through our doors weren't chasing fame. They were chasing permanence. Their voices had been bruised, blurred, buried. Here, they were archived. Not celebrated, preserved. Proof that they had existed. Every wall of our repurposed studio now bore new sound maps. Voices plotted in light, stories held in frequency graphs, a new kind of hall of fame. There were no platinum records, only records. Somewhere across the city, I knew Yoon was still trying to claw his way back. He'd joined another agency under a different title, consultant, I think. A softer name for a man whose legacy now trended under hashtags like credit graveyard, silence architect. He'd gone from mogul to myth. Not the kind that inspires, the kind used to warn. Late one evening, I boarded the 2-Lime subway near Haewa, holding a plain vinyl sleeve in my hands. Black cover, no title, no design, inside a single record. My debut under Dead Signal's Creative Archive initiative. 1 track, no chorus, just voice and silence, woven across 6 minutes of space. I placed it on the seat beside me as the train began to move. A boy 2 seats down looked up, caught the glint of it, then looked away again. I didn't explain. I didn't leave a note. The sleeve had one thing scrawled across the back in white pencil. Property of the forgotten. I stepped off at the next stop. On the walk home, rain started again. Fine, persistent, familiar. The world hadn't changed. The injustice hadn't vanished. But it had been marked. And in the marking, we'd rewritten the conditions of silence. In the final room of the Dead Signal warehouse, where old mics and analog tape reels sat in curated stillness, I placed the last item on the archival shelf. Literally a single red recorder. Light on. Still blinking. No longer a warning. Now a signature. I turned off the lights behind me. No music played. No applause followed. Only stillness. And that was all I ever needed. They didn't credit her, they didn't thank her, they erased her and expected her to stay grateful. But when they silenced her, she didn't disappear. She documented, she waited, and when it was time, she didn't ask for her name back. She took the system instead. If you've ever been stripped of your work, your worth, or your voice, this story was written for you. Drop a comment below. What did they take from you, and how did you take it back? Like this video and subscribe for more stories.